Hey everyone, exciting topic today around the power of AI in analytics. An interesting topic for us tech geeks. Ariel with Sisense, how are you?
Good, good. I'm doing great, and thanks for having me today.
Well, thanks for being here. Really intrigued by your mission at Sisense and your personal biography. Maybe let's start with that. Tell us about your journey from Microsoft, 20 plus years, to becoming the CEO at Sisense.
Yes, definitely a long journey at Microsoft and a very unique one to Sisense. I've been with Microsoft for 21 years, starting from being a developer somewhere back late in the 90s, and then growing the company to both engineering product roles. Later on, I took some executive roles like running Windows Defender, and then in the last I would say 7, 8 years, I took more of business analytics and business intelligence related product roles, being one of the fathers of Power BI, one of the great successes, SaaS stories, enterprise SaaS stories of Microsoft. So very proud to be the first 4 years of that journey, and later also running Dynamics 365 sales, making that an intelligent service for sellers and CRM. So definitely a very long and fulfilling career. At some point in my life, I thought that it would be interesting and rewarding also to get some more of a startup experience. That brought me eventually to Sisense, which is in the same analytics space. So from a domain perspective, that was a domain that I was very well versed on, and I saw a lot of potential with what Sisense is doing in the sense of embedded analytics. And I thought that there is so much future ahead of it. So I joined about 2 years ago as the CPO of the company, and about a year ago I was offered to take the CEO role, and that's what I'm doing since.
Fantastic journey. And fast forward to today. What did Sisense do exactly? How do you explain it to folks who may
Yeah.
not have heard of you?
Yeah, Sisense is basically part of business analytics realm, which is pretty broad and includes both BI companies as well as other companies. What we do specifically is really focusing on creators of analytics within applications.
Mm,
It could be developers, could be analysts, could be product managers, like everyone that is part of building applications to end users. And what we're doing is creating innovation to bring that to the hands. I mean, empowering basically developers or creators to bring analytics experiences or analytics applications into the hands of end users in a very simple way, to really allow everyone basically to consume data effectively, and also being able to connect between data, insight, and action, which is really important in modern applications. So think about us as the Intel Insight, so to speak, within applications for analytics.
that's fantastic. Well, I need that. My clients are always asking for more data, more analytics,
Exactly.
more
Yeah.
insights into the videos and podcasts and et cetera that I create. So we'll talk offline. But let's talk about the big impact that AI and Gen AI is having in business intelligence and analytics. It's changing everything. But how exactly? What's the impact this year?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I would talk maybe more broadly about machine learning, which is still, something that you see a lot, when we talk about AI, like taking a problem, model that, and basically create some AI experience on top of that. I mean, churn prediction and prevention comes from, as an example, good example of ML. There are so many per, in each vertical, and then of course Gen AI. I mean, when I'm asked, I'm always trying to give an analogy that, to me, ML is really, if you look at the brain, like a human brain, ML is really the logical, left hemisphere of the brain, which is, it really excels at analyzing data, recognizing patterns, and really making predictions based on past experiences. Gen AI, which is of course also, part of the big story of AI, is really more the creative right hemisphere, right, which generates new ideas, imagines possibilities, and really creates innovative solutions. And at the end of the day, you really need both hemispheres, brain parts to work together, right, to really create a powerful, cohesive, and capable, mind that can really tackle both the understanding of the world, right, which we usually get from Gen AI, but also you want to transform it through insights and actions. So that's really important to understand, that there is no like Gen AI, which is kind of the new thing that replaces everything we know about AI, all the more, let's call it traditional ML models. It's all coming together. And I'm super excited about that, because we see that as a company, every day as something that really changes, how businesses are, working, and how they're making decisions, and how they're, driving better productivity. So this is really, really important. I think, not just for consumers. We all love, ChatGPT and, Midjourney and all those tools. It's really going to be important. I think it's still early days, but it's going to be super important also for enterprises. And I can see that through our customers, really playing in every vertical that you can think about, whether that's e-commerce, whether that's, healthcare, where you see ML models analyzing patient data, for example, to create, disease outbreaks, with, interestingly enough, Gen AI in the same vertical, creating personalized treatment plans. So here you get it, like how the two sides are really creating two very, very different experiences of, in the same domain. And I can, retail is another good example that we see again and again and again. You see a lot of ML, traditional ML optimizing supply chain management, but then you see Gen AI now crafting personalized shopping experiences, right? Look at Amazon, right? And how they're really transforming their shopping experience. So I don't know if you noticed recently, they added this cool assistant called Rufus, right, which allows you to basically not just look for a product, but also ask follow-up questions. So now this is not about text matching anymore. It's really about like an immersive experience of looking to what you need for, and then asking questions and really getting, very quickly to exactly what you need. And I find that's magical. That's exactly how, all parts of AI are coming together in some very magical way. So I'm excited about, where we are right now.
Yeah, and it is exciting. However, many companies who aren't Amazon or Apple or Microsoft have challenges in adopting new BI and AI technologies. They don't have the teams of data scientists and developers on the bench. So, what are the main challenges they're facing, and how do you see yourself, making it easier and accessible?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will start, before we get into detail, to basically go 60 years, backwards, right? That's when, IBM, started with their, first database, and then started also with some interesting idea of how do you create some, interesting analytics on top of databases. And, back then it looked pretty magical. I mean, this is not just about some meaningless data. It's really also about how you create some insights or simple insights on top of that. So, BI, as we know, that is really here for, I think, at least 60 years, maybe even longer, depending, on your point of view. But it's definitely a lot of time, right? Now, while BI technology has really shifted and evolved over the years, right, with, the simple, more kind of database kind of AI, going into more of an IT governed AI and a BI story, and then into, more self-service BI with Tableau, with, other, companies, and then, of course, the cloud. So Power BI and, Looker are good examples. But one thing really didn't change for 6 years, and that's, the paradigm of BI, right? And this is really, at the end of the day, very simple. It's about how you get, like visual face to data through what is called usually dashboards and reports, right? So you get some, visual view, could look like a pie chart, combined maybe with some histogram or whatever. You get, to start to kind of, interact with your data, maybe ask some questions, but it's really about the drill in, drill out, right? Kind of an experience. You're trying to get to, from a more holistic view of something, all the way to what you think could be, the root cause of a problem or an opportunity or whatever, and then you start to try to find a solution. That's a very it could have I think in the 90s it made all the sense in the world. But I think that the paradigm is really, especially you asked me about Gen AI, right? About how people are talking with data. And I can tell you, part of our customers are really, really not, let's call it data literate, right? One company, just to give an example, my end user, not the customer, but his customer, which are the end users, are truck drivers, right? So they're using, the vendor software to basically get, route for delivery of some goods or repair or whatever, and they don't really go and care about dashboards or reports, as you can imagine, right? That's pretty complex. So I would say this is like one of the biggest, I think, challenges as you think about how do you make BI more kind of standard, more present in organization. Gartner a few years ago talked about how organization, even the more kind of modern organization, if you look at information workers, only about 20 to 25% really benefit from BI. And you have to ask yourself, like, why? And when they started to get into the root causes, one of them was exactly that. Like, it's really hard to consume that. You want to get to the root cause without going through filters or slicers or kind of poking with some, strange visuals on your screen. You want to go very deep from here's the problem I'm having, or here's the hypothesis, and I want to go all the way down to, the root causes or the key drivers. So that's one. I think the other one is really about where should BI live. And again, that goes back to that kind of, I think paradigm that is starting to get in, basically blocking our progress forward, because at the end of the day people don't like dashboards. They really want to be able to interact with data in the context of their work. So and I learned that I told you in the beginning I worked on CRM, right? CRM, you have this, you probably remember this, like 90s, kind of, look and feel of what I call.
Yes, I still have PTSD and flashbacks from that. Yes.
PTSD, exactly. So it's a lot about forms over data. It's a lot about mindset that my manager wants to know, how I'm progressing with, my leads and how I'm qualifying, and so on and so forth. Instead of doing, work in the context of where I live. And where I live is, on collaboration, like Teams or, Zoom or, whatever. And I have a lot of email, which is both a collaboration, but also source of data, because I can actually get a lot of valuable signals by just looking at, that data. Think about LinkedIn, right? Now owned by Microsoft. How much amazing, networking related data you can just get from that. So what if I could bring all the data together into a one cohesive, knowledge source? And then what if I could also bring experiences into, what I'm doing right now, as opposed to I'm abandoning everything I'm doing and then context switching to some, quirky, UI that I need to do something with. So I think that makes all the change in the world. And what we learned here at Sisense, and that's why I'm personally super excited to be here, the more we can really get into the context of the application, the more analytics will be just part of the application versus an add-on or kind of a bolt-on experience from the top, and just feel part of the application that pops whenever you need to ask something. Then everything is changing, and all of a sudden I love analytics as an end user because it just helped me to do my job better. And I love analytics as a vendor because it's not like a premium, isolated, detached kind of a module on top of my core action or operational module. It's now just part of what I'm doing, and actually it allows me to get more innovation or faster innovation and more revenues at the end of the day. So the whole perspective about analytics being from a more optional premium kind of a module to just be part of what I'm doing, and really connecting data, insights, and operation or action, that makes all the change in the world. And what we believe fundamentally here at Sisense, that modern applications are going to be composite, right? Basically, they have modules of either data, insight, or action, and then ways to bring them, tightly together, so it doesn't feel like you're kind of bringing something from the top. So that's number two. And number three, and the last one, is the creators. At the end of the day, your output or outcomes of analytics is as good as how easy it is to create them, right? Now, creating a dashboard is easy, but we already said, or I said previously, that this suffers from the old paradigm that needs to be changed, right? So maybe dashboard is not the kind of default experience going forward. So then, developer ask themselves, so how do I, create that? So the one way that everyone is using, today, BI to get them to applications is called embedded BI. It's usually a very simplistic iframe, driven way to just, bring BI from the top. It doesn't really look like the rest of your application. If you saw that, in the past, it looks different. It looks like a bolt-on. It suffers from security problems. It suffers from, not being aware of the host applications. So there is no really conversation happening or context building between, the host and your BI. And then it just becomes, foreign. What we're doing in Sisense, and that's what, our, mission in life is to make that just part of, the development life cycle. So we're trying to take away everything that we can in terms of hurdles from the developer that is not, necessarily a data, guru, to really build in a very simple and democratic way, those experiences, so every developer can build that into application. So those are the three things that we're really trying to, fix fundamentally and innovate with.
Fantastic. And I'm just looking at your website here, really, interesting customers and partners and
Yes.
some amazing screenshots here. Tell us about some of the minefields that you're helping navigate, because there are ethical issues behind, some of the AI tools. There's privacy and data protection requirements. I mean, how
Yeah,
do you
I'd
think of
say
all
that if
those
you
things
look at
behind the scenes?
Yeah, if you look at those minefield, I would basically say talk about two categories. One category is really about, is that even helping? Forget privacy. I don't care about privacy. Is that really helping me? Is that making the job? I keep hearing about hallucinations everywhere. Now, that could be a fun thing, when it kind of, gets into a teenager mode, when I'm asking a question as a consumer, it can cost me with my job if I'm actually taking that blindly and just presenting my boss, what are the key churn drivers? And he looks at me and said, you don't even know what you're talking about because the data says otherwise. And then, obviously you stop, really trusting that. So I would say that's the number one thing that is really, at the forefront of every kind of AI installation or AI deployment that I talk with customers. Sure that this is helpful. And the way that we're trying to solve that, this is actually a real concern. This is not something you can fix with slides. You have to fix that with a product. The way we're doing that, and the reason why companies like Sisense are actually in a really good spot to really solve that, is because we have one of these, kind of, magic, like the secret sauce, right, that we're having here, which is really what we call the semantic model. And without really going into that, that's a pretty deep topic, and we don't have time right now for that. Think about that as a layer, basically, that is built by a BI, software that is really abstracting data to analytical queries. So it has all the, the business terms that you're using, and then it translates that to your data artifacts. So when I ask about, who are my top, customers, it's really understand what customer means, right? So it can actually drive the right query, into the data. So the reason why this is so important, because that's also almost a dictionary, plus, like a system of truth, basically, that says what are the relationship between all your entities, and what are the facts, what is like the universal truths about your data. Now, once you have that, you can now start to combine between going to the word to ask a question, but really grounding that with your, those entities and the semantic model, understanding of your actual, ground truths of your enterprise. And when you bring them together in some, innovative way, and that's obviously what we're doing here at Sisense, then you get like a grounding truth and also a better explainability why I'm answering the way I'm answering. So this is really, really important from a trust perspective. Okay, so that's one. But you asked me about privacy, right? Now, I have to tell you, ethical AI and privacy, funny enough, this is something I'm thinking a lot about as, almost, for my geeky childhood, being a teen that reads too much Asimov and then, watches science, fiction movies. I always, was fascinated about AI, robotics, and, what's going to be the way that they're going to influence us in a way that makes sense for humanity, not just a way that helps humanity, right? So let me throw some thoughts there, and obviously this is like could be almost a conversation of its own, right? It's such a deep and interesting topic.
Mm.
So one is dilemmas about data, privacy and surveillance. I mean, just we all or most of I guess your podcast audience probably heard or read 1984 by Orwell.
Classic.
And
Yeah.
definitely we're thinking hard about if you read that, you're probably terrified initially. And then that led you to think a lot about dilemmas of data privacy and surveillance. So that's one thing that we need to fix fundamentally. Matrix, which is pretty cool movie. I like the first, by the way, episode. Liked less the sequel. I don't know why they don't stop with the first and the best. They have to continue doing more. But it's such an amazing movie, such a thought-provoking one. And if you think about what it represents, from this discussion, it's really about the challenges in our, what I would say, algorithmic biases and transparency, right? You have this, for example, the hidden nature, right, of metrics that represent what's called the black box problem in AI, right, where you have decision-making processes of AI systems are really opaque, right? You don't really know how the machines behave and how they think and how, and so it's really hard to understand how should I behave to really, satisfy them. So that's really tough. And then, you look at I, Robot, of course, which is one of the most legendary books by Asimov. And that talks about the foundational ethical principles, right? I mean, those are the three principles. Some good friend actually told me there is a fourth one. But it's really helping you to kind of create frameworks of how to think about the interaction between machines, whether that's software or physical robots, and humanity. So I would say if I look at the future and what needs to be happening, I would say four probably areas I think that humanity and obviously government we need to think hard about. Number one is really about data privacy and governance. I would say you have to implement some stringent data privacy laws and governance frameworks to, I would say, protect individuals' personal information. Yes, there are PII today. There's some, obviously already governance around that. I think that's going to have to change to be even, deeper than what we have today. You have to ensure transparency in how data is collected, how it's stored, and how it's used to really build trust and prevent misuse. So I think that's number one. Number two, what I said earlier is about algorithmic biases, right? So this is really about developing, regularly, maybe audit systems and using diverse and representative data sets to minimize biases as much as possible. We heard about Google and some of their famous biases, in how they kind of label pictures and make some, build some of their model. It's a big deal. Of course, you have to ensure fairness here and prevent, AI from being perpetuating existing inequalities. Number three is transparency and explainability. I think we touched already on that when I talked a bit about some of the challenges that we as Sisense are dealing with. And I think you have to probably look at LLMs, but also about enterprise, kind of universal truths and see how you bring them together. I think that's the only way to really make sure that you get both explainability and also avoid hallucinations in those use cases. And the last and, maybe even definitely not the least, maybe the most important one is ethical frameworks and oversight, right? You really have to adopt ethical frameworks like, the Asimov's three laws of robotics. I'm not saying that's holds 100% from today, but what I like about it, it's a framework that is easy now to judge whether a behavior makes sense or not. And I don't think that today, if you look at, OpenAI and all those LLMs and the conversation that they provoke, you don't really understand what is the framework, like what is good enough AI, right? What is like, everyone, is talking about, like the ultimate AI, which is going to be like a human, grade AI. How are we going to really, apply that in a way that is ethical, right, for humanity? And I think, everyone talked about it, but I never saw anyone suggesting a framework. So I hope that one of those LLMs or maybe one of the big, companies like Microsoft or Google will come with that framework. But I think that the world is really missing that right now. So to me,
Well,
this is for kind of top of mind things, but this is so fascinating, and I really look forward to see that evolving.
a really great insight. So much useful thinking there. Back to Sisense, you have so
Yeah.
many amazing partners and customers.
Yes.
Just looking on your website, I don't want you to ask to pick a favorite child or anything, but maybe you can share some success stories where,
Yeah. Absolutely.
someone either in a software industry or outside of software maybe used
Yeah.
AI and
Let's do it.
analytics to innovate.
So I have 1,500 children, just so you know. So I'm pretty proud and busy dad. So let's see if I can maybe talk by categories more than just, individual
Mm,
companies. And I can give some examples if you're interested. One of the cool things about this, I think I said initially, we're kind of an Intel inside. So you're powering so many kind of diverse experiences, right? Because you're basically powering, so many different type of verticals and applications going through, digital transformation with, AI, and AI and BI. So it's really cool to see, how many kind of diverse things that you're actually powering. So a few examples. Let's start with, sports and analytics, or sports, and athletics,
mm.
how analytics is part of that, right? USA Swimming, I'm sure that you heard about that. The national governing body for sports of swimming in the United States, right? They use Sisense to provide interactive analytics to their members.
Oh, wow.
So the partnership that we're having with them allows athletes and coaches as well to analyze performance data, more effectively, improving training and competition. So here is what I'm proud about, right? USA Swimming, as you can imagine, Evan, doesn't have obviously the same, budget like NBA or NFL or, what have you. Now, NBA and NFL can have armies of those analysts and really get to the, most kind of, intimate small detail that helps you to get, 1% better. But what about the long, long, tail of all those, organizations like USA Swimming, and how can we really support, athletes throughout the spectrum, and with different, varying budgets to really be at their best? And that's the thing where you see analytics, and Sisense coming, beyond the just, the 1, 2, 3, top players there. So that's actually a very good example that shows you that there is always such a long tail for every industry. When you think about the 1, 2, 3, top leading companies, and that's where we really have both, business influence, but also, influence in terms of getting people better. So it really makes me feel good, starting my day thinking that I'm helping such organization. From there, let's move, to completely different realm. So NASA, right? Aerospace and research, right?
Mm.
NASA is our customer.
Oh,
We're working together, and we're collaborating to really leverage AI-driven analytics into their operations. And you can understand that as their way of building, the next, spacecrafts, or whatever they're building there. Now, obviously, I don't know exactly what they're doing at every point of time, but this is really so cool to understand that they're using our embedding into their own system. So here is an example of how you basically take a big system that they're using maybe to design something or to build something, or maybe even manage some. They have a pretty complex supply chain, as you can imagine, and then use AI and our analytics to really form better their decisions and eventually their actions. So here's another interesting example. Then you get, to airline operations. So Air Canada is one of our, customers, and they're using us, basically to optimize flight operations and enhance their passenger experience. So basically, whenever there is like a flight brief before, on the ground, before they get on the aircraft, the flight attendants, the pilots, everyone is huddling through our, dashboards and analytics to talk about things like, weather, safety instructions, what's going to be the journey to destination and what to expect. And this is so cool to know that they're using my software to basically plan their flight, and then they're all aligned and store that. So here is a completely different example, and I'll give you one of the one that I really like, maybe the most. And this is completely out of nowhere, maybe. So I'm not, able to share the name of the company, but what they're doing is crisis management and mental health. So this is like an organization, a crisis management organization, and they're using Sisense to support suicide prevention efforts. Sounds
Wow.
scary. And specifically individuals contemplating jumping from the Golden Gate Bridge. So you can imagine bridges, are not
Boy,
just,
yeah.
cool places to look at or to drive. It's unfortunately also a place where people choose to, at least consider ending their lives, unfortunately. And so I don't know if you heard about it, but there is almost, I mean, throughout the gate, the bridge, there are places where you have something like look like a phone, which is like, kind of a 1-800 crisis. If you have any suicidal, thoughts, you can just pick up the phone and you get some human on the other side. But here's the thing: you have to get to like a very quick decision making, given the context of who you're speaking with, and what he has in mind, maybe some data that he's giving to you, if he's willing to do that. And so there are so many factors. Even the weather is a factor here. And so what's happening? We accumulate all those data, right, about past calls, and we are able to really inform in real time the agent on the other side how to handle best, in both in a sensitive way, but also in a way to kind of, drive the right action on the other side to minimize, of course, any attempt to suicide. So I'm really proud about, fundamentally saving life at the end of the day. And this is such, a great feeling. So here is another place, maybe very kind of unexpected, where you see Sisense. But this is in a nutshell, I hope that I give you a taste to how many diverse use cases, both software and outside of software, we're participating in, and there are dozens of verticals like that, which is pretty cool.
Oh, very cool. And, amazing to hear so many examples beyond traditional SaaS or tech.
Yeah, exactly.
Really well done. It's also great to see your former employer doing so well at one of the biggest company in the world, maybe right now, depending on the day. Any leadership lessons you took from Microsoft under various leaders, I guess, including Satya and many
Yeah,
others? What did you take with you?
yeah. I would say in one thing. I don't want to come with a list. So I really want to try to learn one thing, which is what Satya, refers to a growth mindset.
Hmm.
And it's really about the understanding, especially in this crazy, fun, scary, era that we all live in. That is, at the end of the day, success is all about learning. It's all about adapting, and it's all about really understanding what customer really want, and just experimenting and getting to what works or doesn't, by really
Hmm.
taking a very modest, humble approach, and really understanding that at the end of the day you're not expert in anything. You're always a learner. And what I found, and I think that's what I'm also inspired, of course, by Satya, I mean, that's what he brought us, is kind of style and basic philosophy to how you run the company. At the end of the day, we cannot afford, especially on a very large corporate that's saw a lot of success over the years, to have this opposite of growth mindset, which is the fixed mindset. Like, I know it all. I know how success looks like. That's the result when you read books like The Innovator Dilemma, that shows how the most amazing companies on earth stumbled and went out of business. This is because they were so trapped in this fixed mindset thing. So if there is one thing that you learn from Microsoft, and I'm taking that also into my personal life, not just professionally, it's really the understanding that I keep learning. And look at the last year. I was never a CEO before. Yes, I was an executive, in a large corporate, but trust me, Evan, and that can serve, another discussion of its own. It's so much, different universe of being a CEO of, a medium company compared to being an executive as, high as you are and making an impact as large as you are on a large corporate like Microsoft. There's one thing I really want to, your listeners today to kind of bring home. This is really the growth mindset thing, and really be open, humble, hungry, and really focus on learning, because we learn every day, and that's how we succeed.
Well, that's a mic drop moment. So at that point, I'll just say thanks for being here. Really insightful and informative chat. And congrats on all the amazing work you're doing. Onwards and upwards.
Yeah, thank you very much. And again, thank you so much for hosting me. And I really enjoyed this conversation, Evan.
Thanks so much, Ariel. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Take care.
Bye-bye.